the whole track when you go.
You want to leave them on while the set goes?
So Noel, thank you very much for doing this today.
Pleasure.
Can you tell me what's your first musical memory?
Visually, Leo Sayer on top of the Pops doing Won't Let the Show Go On. As music in the background, probably some Irish folk music, I suppose, growing up in an Irish household, I guess.
Was there a lot of sing-songs and stuff as a kid?
Well, the Irish do like to sing as well as fight and drink, and if they can combine all three, happy days. But we weren't an overly musical household, even though my dad was a DJ. I don't recall him, like, you know, on the ones and twos at home. But there was enough music around for me to be interested in it, I suppose.
Do you remember when you started your record collection?
The first record I ever bought was Never Mind the Bollocks, and I'm afraid I am that cool, yes.
Was that, and that was 40 years ago, I think.
77, 87, you know what? I never realised that, and it's still a staggering record today. And if you think of that record 40 years ago, if you played it now, Foo Fighters had shit themselves when they made that record now, wouldn't they?
What about singing at Main Road? Was that something you've got fond recollections of?
Yeah, that's maybe people have surmised. That's where my love of the Terrace Anthem has come from. Maybe, I don't know. But
the idea of singing your heart out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love singing. I used to love singing at the football, and then can't do it anymore. People know who you are. You know what I mean? If you're chanting that you hope some other fella's going to get his fucking head kicked in, it's kind of, you know, be on YouTube, wouldn't you? Not good for your kids.
So I understand that your dad had an old guitar in the house.
Well, yeah. I mean, we still don't know where it came from. It was just there. I mean, I'm assuming it was my dad, but I haven't ever got an image of him playing it at all. And it was behind a door, and I used to get into quite a bit of trouble when I was a teenager, and being grounded, as the term became known, there was nothing else to do. There was nothing on the telly, and I was into music, and I picked up the guitar and started to play along to Joy Division, Peter Hook's bass lines, and it went from there. I think, for me anyway, it was an immediate fascination with it. To get a musical note out of this thing was mind-blowing.
And you're left-handed, but you play right-handed.
Yeah, you've noticed that, yeah.
Did it feel right to you, though, playing like that from the get-go?
Yeah, it's an odd thing. I don't know many people that do it. And I play all instruments right-handed. And everything else I do is left-handed. I'm a fucking can't open a tin of beans. I'll buzz him, you know, when they put the thing on them. That was like, that was a lifesaver, you know, because us left-handed people were discriminated against. Do you know that's where the term righteous comes from?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, medieval times, if you were left-handed, they kind of burnt you at the stake. And that's where the term righteous comes from.
So do you remember writing your first song?
Once I'd learnt to play House of the Rising Sun, those 4 chords or whatever it is, I don't know why I thought it's time that I wrote a song. It was about a girl, no one in particular, but it was something that I wanted to do. I still feel like that today. You know, I still want to be a songwriter, even though I've been writing songs for the last 25 years or whatever, and being in a band and all that kind of thing. And people say to me, journalists or interviewers, you know, what drives you to keep doing it? It's like, because I still want to do it. You know, I still feel that the greatest song ever written is round the corner.
So let's fast forward to the time that you took a set of songs to what became Oasis's rehearsal room.
I did a couple of rehearsals, and I was just sitting in playing the guitar, and then we did a gig, and the only song the only thing that I wouldn't call it written, was the opening track was an instrumental version of Columbia. And I didn't bring a set of songs, but I did have a moment where I was kind of in the rehearsal room with the first incarnation of Oasis, and I'd never heard anybody else playing this song back. As soon as everybody joined in, I was like, well, you play that, you go put the fucking kettle on, and you drum, I can play drums, and you do this. Once the sound in the room, I was hooked immediately, and it kind of blew me away. And that was one of the turning points in my life where I then was writing songs for a band. And but you know, the first gig I did with Oasis, I'd only learned to play the guitar standing up about 3 days before, because I'd never owned a guitar strap. I mean, what would you want one for? You know, I'd kind of sitting on the end of the bed, stoned, playing E minor to A, you know, for a month. And what would you need a guitar strap for? You're not going to go busking. And then when it was like, well, we're going to do a gig, and I had to have a crash course in learning to play standing up. And of course, then there was the added stress of trying to choose a guitar strap, you know, the correct one, because it's fucking important, man. You know, I think I went for some kind of cowboy design.
I guess it sounds inspiring, the experience of hearing your music played by a band.
Yeah.
Did that have an immediate impact on you in terms of a writer, the idea of writing for someone else's voice as well?
The turning point as a writer was when I wrote Live Forever. And I look back on it now, and it seems to me, as I remember it, that I went to bed one night writing a certain kind of song, and then I wrote Live Forever, and then I went to bed the next night and I'd completely changed as a songwriter. And that song turned it all around. Not that I was frustrated with what I was doing, I thought it was fucking great. You know, I didn't realise what I was doing was shit until I wrote Live Forever.
Is that what people call finding your voice, do you think?
Well, yeah, we'd spent, you know, 18 months in that rehearsal room. We weren't working on a sound, you know. We had very, very limited equipment, and we just turned it up loud, and that was it. But yeah, you stumble upon something that was natural, and that was it. It sounded. I even at that age, I knew enough about music, and I'd read enough music magazines, and I owned enough records to know that this song that I've written is fucking great. It's not good. It's great. You know, I've struggled to get there since. You know, like I'm saying that not only me. You know what I mean? Anybody who plays guitar is kind of like try and get there. You know, you can't.
Tell me about writing Don't Look Back in Anger.
Well, I wrote it in Paris. It was raining. It was after a show that we did. And we'd been to a strip club. Is it a song about a stripper? I don't know. I don't think so. I remember being drunk, and I remember writing it. I remember getting up the next morning. We were on the way back to England to do some arenas or something. And my guitar was lying on the floor, and the lyrics were on a kind of table in the hotel room. And I played it back to myself and thought, could be good, could be pretty good if when the band play it, that'll be good. That was it. I never thought anything else of it. People say to me, well, you know, did you realise what that song was going to become? It's like, if I thought that we were sitting here today still talking about it, I'd never have finished it. Because how could it possibly live up to... That song has almost become bigger than Oasis, do you know what I mean?
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play? You said that you'd never been, 'cause all the things that you've seen are gonna fade away. Start a revolution from my brain. You said the brains I had went to my head. Step outside, 'cause summertime's in bloom. You stand out beside the fireplace and take that look from off your face, 'cause you ain't never gonna burn my heart out. So Sally can wait. She knows it's too late. She's walking on by. Her soul's light away. But don't want to bear in anger, I heard you say. Take me to the place where you go when nobody knows. Well, if it's night or day, please don't put your life in the hands of a rock and roll band and throw it all away. I'll start a revolution from my bed. Said the brains I had went to my head. Step outside, 'cause summertime's in bloom. Stand up beside the fireplace, take that look from off your face. You ain't never gonna burn my heart out. So Sally can wait. She knows it's too late. She's walking on by. The soul's light away. But don't be back in anger, I heard you say. So Sally can wait. She knows it's too late. She's walking on by. The soul's light away. Don't be back in anger, I heard you say. So Sally can wait. She knows it's too late. She's walking on by. The soul's light away. But don't look back in anger. Don't look back in anger. I heard you say. At least not today.
It's got some quite autobiographical lines in it, hasn't it? Like stand up.
Oh, yeah, there's one. Yeah. All my songs will have one or two lines in that mean something specific to me growing up or my life at the point. And the stand up beside the fireplace was, I remember as a child, my mum would always take photographs of us on our birthdays and send them to my gran in Ireland, and it would always be stood in front of the fireplace. And I vividly remember saying, you'd take that stupid look off your face, because you'd be like, you know. Yeah. And again, you know, if you're thinking of that song and what it's become, you'd never put that line in a song. It's ridiculous.
So how does it feel, the way, talking about how the meaning of things change in time, you know, how does it feel the way people have rallied around that song after the Manchester arena bombings?
Well, it's a tough one because you're kind of, as a songwriter, you live for that shit. You know, it's like that is it. For a song to be taken down the, you know, across 3 decades now, do you know what I mean? And for its meaning to evolve and grow, and it means different generations have found something in it. It's like a timeless piece of fucking art. And it's still confusing to me as to what it means. So that's what I sort of, one hand, you're kind of extremely proud, and like, on the other hand, you wish it was still the song about the woman who's toasting the drifting by of her life. You wish that this anthem of defiance, you wish it never happened, you know, because people died. But if anything, it's made me believe more in the power of music, that all the fucking platitudes of politicians and world leaders about things, it's a song that brought the people together. Without being an extraordinary song, it's a fucking extraordinary song, you know. And if I wish I knew how I did it. I'd sit down, you know, tonight and write another 6 like it and then retire, you know, go and live on fucking Saturn somewhere.
Do you always write the music first?
Always, yeah. Don't do the words till last. The melody and the chords are coming at the same time, and then it'll start with a chord or something, or a couple of chords, and then the melody will dictate where that goes, and then that, I don't have a studio, I don't have a Porter studio, so that will stick with me for sometimes years until a phrase or a rhythmic vocal thing will fall out of the sky, and then if I persevere with it enough, it might turn into a song. If I don't, sometimes you just give up on, you know. So I'm still fascinated by that process of where songs come from and why some are, and which is why I keep doing it, you know.
Yeah, the endless quest.
Yeah, I'm in love with it.
So can you tell me about writing What a Life?
There's a song that all of us used to go to the Hacienda called Strings of Life by Rhythm is Rhythm. It was one of my favourite ever pieces of music from that era. And it has this keyboard riff in it. And I was at home in Marylebone, number 12 Nottingham Place. I came up with a guitar thing that lent itself to that, and I thought, oh, maybe do that on the piano. And I went quickly to a studio in Soho, and usually I would round up the troops and we would go down there, but I just went on my own, and there just happened to be an engineer there. He's only a kid. And I said, can you play the piano? And he said, well, you know, kind of. I said, can you do this? And I played him the Rhythm is Rhythm thing with these chords. He did that. That went round for a bit, and then I sang the bit on top of it. It stayed like that for ages. It was just a demo. I thought it was fucking amazing. I remember saying to Sarah, oh, wait till you hear this track I've done. It's fucking great. And as is usually what happens in my house, is I get excited about something and play it to someone, my family, and when it finishes, they'll go, like I'm a 7-year-old, they go, oh, that's nice. That's nice. Not like you've just learnt to play the banjo or something. Oh, yeah, it's nice. It's good. You know, I'm like, fucking good. That's fucking amazing. Yeah, okay, it's good. What do you want for your tea? You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like, wow, fucking, I'll give up. And then when it came to doing it properly in the studio, that's when it came to life. And then Dave Sardi actually took it somewhere else altogether. It didn't take long to write. And I love it. It's one of those songs that are going to be one of my calling cards for now until I decide to retire.
knowing that you're writing for your own voice, does that make life easier?
Yeah, and also when you're performing a song live, you know what it's about. That was one of the unique things about Oasis, but unique to us and the Who, really. That, you know, myself and Pete Townsend would exclusively write the songs, and then another fellow would sing them. So, which is probably why my obsession with the universal truth came from. If they become too personal, your kind of singer is going to go, it's just about your bird, you know what I mean? Get the arse with it then. So it's got to be about everybody's bird, you know what I mean?
Maybe that's a great thing, I mean, in terms of commercially, because it tends to be about everybody's truth.
That's the dynamic of being in a band. You know, it's kind of, you're in a band, you know what I mean? It's not all about you, it's kind of all about the thing. And but now where I'm at now, yeah, I much prefer it. It's a pleasant place I find myself in at the minute.
Tell me about making this new album with David Holmes.
Well, this is completely different. You know, this was going to the studio. He insisted that I bring no songs whatsoever. He wanted to be there at the creation, and he wanted to direct it. And I was more than willing to let him. And I entered into it with a spirit of adventure and just to see where it went. I couldn't have made this record in a band. There's absolutely no way. There's no way. I mean, if people were behaving like schoolgirls over cigarettes and alcohol, you can imagine what it would have been like when a French bird in a cape showed up. You know what I mean? So, but David was great. You know, I would be writing stuff in the studio and he would say, no, sounds like Oasis. I've heard you do that before. That melody is, you do that all the time, do something else. And, you know, do something different. It's possibly the most vaguest direction you could ever say to somebody. It's like, well, what does that mean? But after a while, and I'd say about a year, when I kind of got to know him better and what he liked when I was doing it, kind of became easier. And it was fascinating. And fantastic stuff was coming out of it. Not all day, not every day. We'd do sessions not knowing, you know, what you were going to get. You know, I came home from the studio, this is just one particular night, and, you know, Sarah said, how's studio today? And I was like, you know what, I really don't know. She's like, well, what have you been doing? I'm like, I've been playing a synthesizer for 7 hours. She's like, you can't play a synthesizer. I went, I know. I know, but I think it's going to be fucking great, you know. And it's my favourite record I've ever done. And until I make another one, it'll remain that way. I love every track on it, every track. I'm still listening to stuff on it, thinking, what is that? What is it? Is it a guitar? Is it a synthesizer? Oh, fuck knows, I don't know. Oh no, oh no. No, it's a pair of scissors. we'd been making a record a certain way, like making loops and then building up from there. And then this is another one. David just turned and said, "Have you got any riffs? Any guitar riffs?" And I'm like, I don't know. And I was playing something. No, that's Oasis. I got kind of that one. No. This one? No. And when I played the riff, he went, "That's great. What's that?" And I was like, "I've had it for ages." Then I remember writing the chorus chords and Dave loving that. I remember being in the studio when I went to record the vocals and I thought I'd had the chorus. And I recorded this chorus, took it back to the studio where he was, and he's, "No, not having it." And I was like, "Well, it's fucking great." And he's like, "No, it sounds like Oasis." I wrote another chorus, he didn't like that. And one day I was walking out of the studio and one of my oldest friends, Paul Stacey, who's engineered tons of my stuff, said the immortal words, "What would David Bowie do?" And I was like, what would David Bowie do? Then it's kind of put me back down. I went back and went, okay. And we listened to Bowie for ages. And the chorus appeared from fucking out of nowhere through a puff of smoke. And I went home, wrote some words for it, came back, and the title Beautiful World just appeared. Then there was the gap. And David was saying, what are we going to do with this bit? And I was like, I hear spoken word. And for some reason, French is what I heard. I don't know why. And he had, as luck would have it, I've got this sample, and it's from a French record. And the tone of it was great. It was like a call to arms kind of thing. And we flew that in the bit, and it sounded great, but we couldn't use the sample. So David said, well, we'll get somebody to do something. Enter Girl in Cape. And to announce the end of the world. And when I heard it, I was like, it's fucking great. Great, it's great, it's great, it's great. Loved it. It wasn't until weeks afterwards that I had to get a translation of it, and I was like, oh, I don't do the end of the world, you know what I mean? I fucking don't do the end of the world. I wish, if the one thing I could change on this record, it would be in that bit she says, hold on to your loved ones, it's only the end of the world. I would change that now to hold on to your loved ones, it's not the end of the world.
People talk about trying to rediscover a place of innocence where perhaps they wrote some of the most notable songs. And does it become harder?
I found it because I wrote the first 2 albums, the bulk of the first 3 albums in Manchester in my flat, number 47, India House on Whitworth Street. Don't go ringing the bell because a mate of mine lives there now. Once that initial first 3 records were out of the way, you sold a lot of records. It's like, what are you going to write about? You know, you can't write about the joys of sitting in the park with a, bottle of cider and a tape recorder, cigarettes and alcohol. Clearly, that's not your life anymore. I did struggle with that for a while. It took me a while to realise that what I should be writing about is the universal truths of life. Like, we all love and lose, and we all feel those things. It doesn't matter how famous you are or how successful you are. Your heart still gets broken, you know what I mean? You still feel shit about things that you see on the news and stuff like that. So, yeah, initially it was kind of like, you can't really write songs about hanging out with supermodels. I mean, you can write one, and it better be fucking good, you know what I mean? But
so that was an intense period of creativity for you.
Initially, I'd say from 93, I would say 93 and 94 is where I wrote the big famous songs. I went back to the flat the other day. Some American TV show was doing a documentary about me. I went back to the flat, and I can assure you, I thought maybe the surroundings had something to do with it. Yeah. It's just a little box flat in Manchester, so... But I've always been a dreamer, and I must have always subconsciously felt I was going to leave Manchester, because all those songs to me sound about, looking towards a metaphorical horizon and thinking, I wonder what's over there, And I've always been an inquisitive child, hence me picking up the guitar behind the kitchen door and seeing what it did,
So tell me about the fantastic track, Holy Mountain.
It was one of the first things that we did, and it was a sample that David had in his library, and we'd met. The first time we went to Belfast, we'd met the night before. We had a drink and played some records, and got there the next day, and he had the sample from a track called Chewing Gum Kid by a band called The Ice Cream, who I know fucking pretty much anyone that's ever made a record, and I was like, who? And it was the riff, you know, the da-da-da-da. And that was it, and it went round for ages, and he was saying, what do you think of this? And I was like, instantly went, I fucking love it. It's so annoying. I love it. And he said, do you think you could write a song around this? And I went, if it fucking kills me.
So much of what you've been telling me about relates to the business of having to stick with things and work through problems and have discipline in writing.
Yeah.
You know, so that seems to be a feature of this new record that you've made. They weren't just falling out into your lap, these songs.
Yeah, well, you know, when you get to this stage of where I'm at and the age that I'm at, you're not supposed to throw all the bits up in the air and see what happens. But at the end of my last tour, I'd written, recorded, produced, run my own record label, Chasing Yesterday, did the tour and all that. You come back with a real vivid sense of who you are. And I was thinking, well, what else is there to do? What else is there for me to do now? That surely is the ultimate. That's my thing. And it was time to put a full stop against it and change clothes. You know, and just say, right, well, let's fucking see if there's anything else, you know what I mean? And thank God David appeared, you know what I mean, and seen something in me that I didn't realise was there. But, you know, my parents always, and you know, the Irish have got an amazing work ethic, you know what I mean? And my parents always said to me, you don't get nothing without grafting for it, you know what I mean? And you got to want to do it. When you get, the more successful that you get, the less driven that you get. I get more driven, I think. Well, I'm not art school, right? I'm just a fucking guy that came from a council estate who happened to find an acoustic guitar at home, who had a love of it, and I'm a fan of music, and I write music from that perspective. I'm not fucking cool. I'm just an ordinary fucking guy with an extraordinary gift, or so it would seem.
Just to end, can you tell me how you feel about the musical landscape at the moment? Is there stuff out there that's exciting you?
Well, I'm just getting taught for the next hour about music and songs and all that, but the landscape is forever changing. And I guess the main thing now is, by the end of this decade, music will be exclusively for rent. You know, you won't actually own it anymore. And streaming is the future, and that's a little bit sad. But the gigs will never change. I mean, the one constant is, as long as you can get up and play it live, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. Because really, every other fucker's having songs written for them these days. There's only mugs like me and Weller, fucking Johnny Marr and McCartney, you know, slaving over a fucking line of a song, you know, that you won't finish for 3 years because there's just one bit of it not particularly right. Every other fucker goes into work in the day and says, okay, so what have you got for me? Like, you know, but that's the modern world, you know. We are the last of a dying breed. It'll never change for me. I still, along with Weller and Johnny and McCartney and fucking Dylan and all that mob, Neil Young, I'd imagine we all consider ourselves to be album artists, and they're important to us, you know. I still will have, you know, meetings, spend thousands, fucking more money than you really should on artwork, scrapping it and trying to get it right. Nobody gives a shit. For iTunes, it's that fucking big. You know what I mean? You've got to put your glasses on to look at it. But, you know, really, when you break it all down, it's all about the song, innit? And as long as you've got good songs, really the rest of it doesn't really matter.